All right. First of all, welcome to Inspiring Minds Canada with my co-host Catherine Mejas. And our main mission for Inspiring Minds Canada is to empower, and awaken individuals to reach their full potential through education and innovation. So tonight we got a special topic, which is prosperity and spirituality. And throughout the whole, last 30 years, I've met so many people that are, asking about both of them. So we have a great guest for tonight. She is a mom. She is the founder of Simplicity's Financial and Prosperity Retreat. She's a contributor to Home Magazine. I think that's it, right? And Globe and Mail. She's got a couple articles on there. And she's a book writer. She's wrote a book on the $1 million difference. So tonight we're going to ask her a series of questions and learn about who she is. And she's one of the inspiring individuals making a big difference in the community and people's lives. She's very passionate about finance and health and well-being. So I'd like to introduce everyone. Anna Knight, welcome.
Thank you, John. That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. And I'm excited and thrilled to be here to share this evening. It's 6 o'clock. It's considered an evening, right, guys?
Yes.
Evening. Yeah. Okay. Evening discussion. Absolutely. Can't wait.
So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what in your background in finance, but also in health and well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's kind of two distinct spheres about me. One, I've been in private practice for almost 20 years now, running a retirement and financial planning practice based in Etobicoke. And it's primarily a practice I've built through educating people on retirement planning, estate planning, and tax planning. So pre-COVID, we would put together workshops around helping people retire. Often I would be asked to speak at the Government of Canada for their staff as they're going into, going through that, 50 and over age. What do we do? How do we look at our pensions? What are some of the options? So that's my financial background. And I've built a quite successful practice. I've got incredible clients, loyal, incredible people to begin with, but they've also, like my family, a lot of my clients have been with me for 10 years plus, most of them 15. I just spoke to one of my clients, and they're twins. I met them when their twins were born. They just went to university. I'm like, what happened to the time? And I have another set of clients who I've helped retire in their 50s. They're in their 70s, mid 70s, early 80s. They're enjoying golfing. They're enjoying traveling. Obviously, things have changed for them during COVID. So it's kind of nice to see people going through different transitions in life and being sort of a part of that. And I truly enjoy that aspect of my life. So it's really helping people create game plans in any spectrum, depending on where they are in life. So if they're younger, we're creating a game plan around how do I look after my children? How do I look after my young family? Maybe we're looking at purchasing a home. Maybe we're looking at, okay, we want to save towards retirement. A lot of the times in your 30s, that's sort of probably one of the bottom priorities, but we might want to get some contributions towards that. And then you're getting into your 50s, your 40s, late 40s, early 50s, that's becoming a little bit more of a priority. So might be doing a little bit more retirement planning, maybe definitely some estate planning, but also estate planning for their parents. That's oftentimes because estate planning is a huge part of what I do. So sometimes I get to get invited in different conversations with families in terms of how do we plan for our parents? Our parents are aging, they're getting into their 80s and 90s or late 70s. We're concerned, right? So that's a big part of what I do in the wealth space. And coming out of COVID. And then the second part of my space, I've also been a fitness enthusiast and a fitness instructor since I was in university. So, just 3 years. I'm just joking. It's been a minute. I think it's 20 something years as well. I've taught, I'm a passionate dancer. So I taught different Zumba classes, boot camp classes over the years. I've kind of retired from that. I only do it sporadically. And I really got into the joy of yoga. I really been experimenting with yoga over the last number of years. And I actually got trained in teaching yoga. And I found a lot of calmness and peace because I am a business type A personality, and I find yoga gives me that other spiritual, grounds me. And sort of earlier this year, I found, coming out of COVID, everybody's coming to me saying, this is what we're dealing with, whether it's a business owner that's really been challenged, dealing with parents who have children now that have different psychological issues due to being isolated for a period of time. Everyone's coming saying, this is what we're concerned with, this is what we're concerned with, feeling level of burnout. And I kind of thought to myself, and obviously finances are always the undertone. There's always that underline, oh, but we might not have money for this, or we're concerned about this, and how about that? So I thought to myself, what if I actually step out of my comfort zone and create a retreat or an event that combines both of my passions, really looking at someone's life holistically? So, when I started really reflecting and meditating on that, and then I brought in sort of a team around me of wealth experts and meditation experts and, yoga practitioners and healing experts. What we kind of together as a team came to realize is, sitting down with somebody and just looking at their finances or just trying to heal them from a spiritual perspective sometimes is not enough. You need a team approach, an approach where you can guide somebody holistically from one area of their life into the other area, and the next area, and really truly help them transform and help them define their idea of prosperity. When I mean prosperity is in all areas. So it's not just financial. I mean prosperity in your health, prosperity in your spiritual aspects, in your relationship. So how do we help people truly experience prosperity in all areas of their life? So that's kind of what we created. And it's taking place on Sunday. So my newborn, or my little infant, is now, I think, a complete adult by Sunday. So it's been an incredible journey with an amazing, amazing team of people. And John and I kind of connected throughout that journey. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. And I'm excited to see how that transpires over the next little bit. But I'm very excited to be bringing, I feel like, a fresh and more approachable approach to financial planning, being a traditionally trained financial planner. How do we make financial planning a little bit less threatening and a lot more accessible? And I really want to see, my mission is really seeing our communities in all ethnicities and backgrounds have opportunity, education, and growth. And I feel like there's a lot of lacking, especially in different demographics. So that's kind of what I'm all about.
Wow, that you have so much going on. I'm so excited for this retreat for you. I have a question. Since you have a background in financial planning, do you see a link between people who have had traumas and their finances?
Absolutely. Oh, you nailed it right there. Woof. That's a great question. And you know what? Speaking of which, one of my business associates is a financial therapist.
Oh, wow.
So her and I work very closely together. And with some clients, I don't even, we identify there is some trauma. And then we engage her first. She does some work around healing the trauma. So what are some of the traumas that are, and how they're translating and how they're spending money? A lot of the times we self-soothe. When it comes to some of the trauma, we don't even identify or realize that we have this trauma, and it's literally sabotaging your financial plan. So my challenge is I can draft a plan that sounds great in my office and it sounds great to my clients, but sometimes the breakdown is in actual fulfillment or implementation, even on my client side, because it's a two-way partnership. So when I'm putting together a game plan for a client, there is a commitment from me, but there's a commitment from my client. So working with trauma, and I think all of us carry trauma to different degrees. Mm-hmm. Working through some traumas really opens up that commitment and gets clear on what's going on and what are the subconscious and conscious ways I'm operating based on my trauma. So there's absolute linkage. And it depends if it manifests itself in a financial aspect. It could manifest itself in other areas of their lives. They might have poor relationships or poor self-esteem. So it really depends on how it really manifests itself for the particular individual, for sure.
And is this something that whoever's attending your retreat will be able to dive into and learn more about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, what we brought together is different ways of Number one being still and identifying what's going on for yourself. And then we brought trauma therapists who are actually trained in dealing with different types of traumas, right? Obviously, a lot of the times when it comes to specific trauma, it needs to be one-on-one work, and it's work that takes one day. It's especially in a group setting, it's very difficult to really truly resolve it. But I feel like perhaps we can give some peace around it, or at least some awareness. So maybe the next steps can be created from then, even if like, oh, there is trauma, here's what it looks like for me. What can I do next? And we definitely have a whole panel of individuals who can assist them from that point forward as well.
That is really good. I think it's amazing because I can relate to a lot of these things. But as you know, 95% of our stress is about money, whether you're doing, having a normal job and also in spiritual. And, at the end of the day, we got to pay our bills. So talking about trauma, some of them are pretty deep rooted. So tell me a lot of things, what you saw the last couple of years during the time of COVID, because, the retreat is not just for spiritual individuals, but I think a lot of them they need to learn about how money works. A lot of them may want to be financially free, but they just don't know how to get there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Tell me something what you saw the last couple, 2 years of the time of COVID, and in terms of people with money and wanting to try something different.
Yeah. So here's a couple of things that I did notice. Number one, we have a group of people that are professionals that went through different stresses in their lives a lot of the time. So with that group of people, what I found is a lot of time what I found with that group of people is their companies were expecting so much of them. Some of them throughout COVID could have been packaged out, or they could have even chose to resign towards the end of COVID because they just felt burned out. So there's that group of people. They're dealing with trauma because now they're saying, okay, I've worked with this ABC company for the last 15, 20 years. I've decided to move into a private sector, set up some kind of a business, maybe a consulting business. How do I do that? And creating financial structures, which is one of the big topics we're going to be talking about during a retreat, is a key aspect to that, because you can have a phenomenal idea, beautiful passion for your work, but having certain structures in place will ensure that you're actually going to be successful. So that's one area that I saw. Another area, definitely, saw, unfortunately, some business owners whose businesses have been devastated. Like they were not working for 1.5 to 2 years. Whether they had to transition to another business, whether they had to close doors and really forego what they built for the last 15, 20 years, restaurant owners, entertainment businesses, that I think those are the predominant sectors. So now they're not only under massive financial stress, which then trickles and impacts their relationships, it impacts their relationship with their kids, it impacts their financial well-being, it impacts their confidence, their self-awareness, their stress level. So it's kind of a massive ripple effect. And how do we help them create a new blueprint for life? How do we help them see COVID as an opportunity for a pivot? That's kind of what I always try to come from at it, like look at everything that's going on as a blessing versus a crisis. But most of us, and I unfortunately, I find media really spins that beautifully, keeps all of us in that constant state of fear. And that's one thing I want to really, hone in during our retreat is how do we, one phrase that I use often, give me lemons, I'll make lemonade, right? I'll just put some honey in it. I'll stir it up. Just how do we turn a crisis, turn it around into an opportunity? And then another group of people that have really struggled during COVID, I know for a fact personally, I'm in that block too. Struggling parents, dealing with children. I run a practice and I had 2 kids at home for 1.5 years, 2 boys who were in and out of school all the time. The stress level of trying to run your business, try to make sure your kids are doing somewhat of some schooling and dealing with their mental health. I just find that parents in general are just burned out. And part of my notion of creating a retreat is for parents, so we can be like, okay, I need a day out. We've just went through summer. We just shipped the kids off to school. It's a time for me to hang out with my girls or to hang out with my friends or my business partner, my associates, and really take a sound bath, one of their practices will be a sound bath. Do a beautiful sound-inspired yoga class. Maybe reflect on some financial structures. Maybe reflect on how COVID impacted you from a trauma perspective, going back to your notion, right? So I think, those are the three predominant. Of course, we can't forget, and I do have a lot of clients in that bucket, seniors. Anybody in their, 60 and over, and I don't even like using the word seniors, older adults, especially the ones who are officially retired. They were classified in the category of being higher risk. So a lot of them were really scared of leaving their homes. They were dealing with isolation. Literally, myself and my team, for some of my clients, we were calling them monthly just to say hi, because we felt like they were just so isolated. So like during COVID, we sent out to most of our clients, especially the ones that I felt were getting really impacted, we sent just Christmas flowers, because I just felt horrible what they were going through. They might not have their children visiting as often because there were all those restrictions. And they're just scared. They were just scared. So definitely, speaking of trauma, we finished COVID, but the trauma hasn't finished. We haven't healed the trauma yet. We kind of rolled in from COVID into, it's not a good example, but it's the reality. In the news, we went from COVID to the war, right? So we went from one fear to another fear. And now we're in the fear of interest rates and recession, right? So if we look at our last, 2.5 years, really has been one fear after another, right? So how do we, and they all pile up, right? Being in the wellness industry, you guys know that, one trauma or one fear piles up, and eventually, people snap. People have, they might go and spend too much money because they're like, I just need to feel better for a minute. Going back to, how it impacts your finances. They might make really irrational decisions. We know that domestic abuse is on the rise. There is a reason for that. Mental health crisis lines are, being used more than ever before. So I think all of that is the longer term impact of that last 2.5 years we've been going through. And I feel like we as a community have to come together more often to say, okay, what can we create to really help that?
I love what you said about the lemon, how you view it, because I'm the same. I always say, change your perspective, and instead of letting the challenge use you, how can you use it to propel yourself forward and learn more about yourself and become a better human, right? So I love that you said that. And so going into your retreat, because it's coming up, what type of individuals would be like your perfect people attending this retreat? Would it be all of the people that you mentioned, the seniors, the mothers, or the parents? Is it only for women? Is it for men as well? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for men as well. It's for both men and women. I keep joking to men, they love yoga, right? Mm-hmm. All men, it's such a stereotype, but yoga, I was at a yoga retreat in Arizona in March. And what surprised me is it was a 50-50 split. The instructors were a lot of the male instructors, and the audience was a lot of male audience. So I think we're just slower to adapt to the same philosophy. There's massive benefits, physical and mental, for men. I think men's mental health is not talked about enough. Men are socialized. I'm raising 2 boys, so that's a subject that's very dear to me. I want to know that my boys are taught that they can talk about their feelings, emotions. It's okay for men to be down. It's okay for men to go through the same emotions we go through. We just don't talk about it enough. And yoga is a beautiful way to kind of combat and heal that. And to your point, I want to make sure, because I like to go on tangents. We can talk for hours, by the way. But to go back to your point, first of all, I think anybody that values self-growth, time for yourself, which we all should, but not all of us do. So anybody that values that would, first of all, would be like, okay, a retreat sounds wonderful to me. Anybody that wants growth in areas of, okay, how do I create prosperity for my life? How do I create abundance? And be exposed to different practices that help you do that, right? So we're going to be going through, mindset workshops, nutrition workshop, financial structure workshop, a couple of yoga classes. We're going to be going through meditations, the tapping technique for trauma release. And stress and anxiety. And then we're going to be closing it off with a beautiful sound bath and then having some community time. I think that's the other part that's missing. If you're at home and you've been hesitant, or you feel a little bit isolated, or you feel like your friendships have shifted during COVID, come out and be around people that are like-minded, that want to grow, that want to better themselves. And it's a great space to meet new people. So anybody that appreciates wellness, self-care, that wants to grow and learn, that feels they need something for themselves to either relax, to grow, to create new friendships. And I think that those would be my keys, to be honest with you. There is really no particular age, gender, ethnicity. I think anybody could generally benefit from a day like we've created.
So it's a one-day retreat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes, it's 8 to 5. Sorry.
Okay, 8 to 5.
8 to 5 starts with a continental breakfast. The official kickoff is at 9 a.m. We're doing just an introduction, a quick meditation to set the context for the day. And then we're going right into a nutrition workshop with a phenomenal, powerful speaker. That she's a massive coach around self-love, nutrition, and fitness. So we're going to be starting off with that. Then we're going to move into hopefully an outdoor yoga class. We have a phenomenal yoga instructor that's going to guide us through a 1 hour Hatha yoga class, hopefully outside. We're going to move into some mindset workshops for about an hour following lunch. So we have lunch included in the retreat as well. We'll have refreshments throughout the day. It's in Kingsbridge Center, so it's in King City. It's a beautiful conference center. If anybody has been there, it's essentially a forest setting. And inside of it is this conference center. It's very hidden. I only came across it because I had a business conference there a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. Because I wanted to be outside. I wanted this to be with nature as long as the weather permits. And the way we've set it up is we'll have outdoor, indoor, depending literally per hour, we can restage and move the event. So we're hoping to at least part of it to be, there's a beautiful deck overlooking water. So we're hoping some of the yoga, we can certainly do that. And in the afternoon, I'm going to open it up with a discussion around harmony of money. So this is even more passionate topic than everything else for me, because it's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And it's how do you create this, when you think harmony, most of the times we think about spa, we think about, well-being, we think about yoga, but how do we create that in our financial life? So what structures do we have to have in place? Whether you're 20 or 80, there are specific structures, and I'm going to be talking about some of those structures, and I'm going to try to break them down into yoga terms so they're much more accessible for who I'm speaking to. And we're going to move into tapping practice and another yoga flow in the afternoon. And then we're going to close it off with a sound bath at the very end by two incredible individuals. They both work with trauma patients in Toronto. So, I think overall it's going to be, and then we're going to close it off with hanging out by the fire, super casual, just having, a tea, a drink, whatever anybody desires, and just to kind of get to know each other and create a community of love and kindness and respect, following everything we've been through. So that's kind of the intention that we're creating.
How beautiful. And I love how you brought together two things that in the past people would never think to put together: finance and kind of the more spiritual kind of aspect, and how marry them together. So for yourself, you had mentioned that you were into fitness and then you went into yoga. Was there something that, like a turning point in your life where you felt like, okay, I got to get more connected to myself and to this area in my life?
Oh, we're getting personal now. Absolutely. And there was definitely few moments. But sort of the latest one of them is I went through a quite traumatic experience with on a professional level. I left the dealership I was working through. I built my practice there. And, I went through a betrayal. I really work closely with a group of people, and I felt quite betrayed. I went through a 2.5-year legal battle in order to reestablish myself under a new brand. During that time, imagine going into court and having to defend not only your professionalism, but your integrity. So I essentially started my practice with having 2 Bay Street lawyers on staff, and we fought this for about over 2 years. And during that time, being a single mom as well, I had to figure out, I wasn't making any income, so I had to figure out, what do I do? And, the good news is, because I have a financial background, I had specific structures in place that actually allowed me to carry me through the 2 years of what I was going through. So, I kind of emphasize that always, no matter what's going on and how wonderful things might seem, you always have to have this plan B and C and D. And that's kind of my plan C and D, is what carried me through that period of time. Emotionally, though, it was excruciating, because it was draining, because you have to still show up for your clients. As a financial planner, I was still managing my clients. I had to calm my clients down, because to me, they were family and I was letting them down. That was probably one of my biggest things that was weighing on me. And then having to show up to all these different appearances. So I picked up my yoga love during that time, because I needed some way to take care of myself. I was like, I needed that hour to myself to really say, okay, I need to ground myself. I need to be able to show up differently, and really start falling in love with yoga then, even more so. And during COVID, dealing with my children and running a business, it was stressful. And I dedicated a half an hour every day. I would get up at 5 a.m. My mornings were my yoga practice. So every day during COVID, I did yoga. And again, my kids noticed the difference. They're like, Mom, when you don't do yoga, we don't want to talk to you. That's pretty much what they say. Mom, do yoga. So I do yoga every day in order to be a better mom and a better business person, and, be calmer. I find I'm definitely calmer, more peaceful, more grounded, and I'm able to be more productive with my own clients, because they feel that authenticity versus there's stuff going on in my head. Right. And I think that's one of the benefits for me, is truly being able to get grounded to my purpose, to completely get grounded to, how I show up for people versus showing up with all my luggage, right? Because we all have luggage, right? So how do we show up without that luggage? So yes, you heard half of my story now. There you go.
Well,
sorry, John, you were saying something?
one good thing about your background in a retreat, because I strongly believe in, in finance, that's where my background is too, is this, in a community and in social media, there's a lot of people promoting manifestation. They're becoming abundance coach, wealth coach. To be honest with you, I'm like pretty sick and tired of it, because a lot of these people, when I ask them, so you want to talk about abundance, you want to talk about wealth, well, what's your structure, what's your strategy? Obviously, you can manifest some of these, things that you want, but in order to make money, you need to learn how money works, which is, I like that, you're adding that on, because when you consult, when I ask them questions like, what's your structure? They have a background in finance. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
Because for me, to be honest, it's out of control. Like, the health and well-being is great, but also the life coaching is, it's too much. Everybody's talking about abundance, and which is nice that you're for your retreat and your background, is because when people do ask you about money, and you can tell them, not just because you have a book, right? It's more, the credibility. It's a certified financial planning.
Yeah.
No, I try to be honest. When people ask me about it and they try to invite me to their event, I'm like, I'm a bit of a snob. I'm like, no, I'm not going there. I just know, I'm like, they're gonna try to milk you with $10,000 of like workshops, right? Or a whole week, which is nice that in your retreat that you're really taking the time, and whether it be young or old, you're gonna teach them, you're gonna show them, you're gonna structure it.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
Thank you. You know what? It's a downside and an upside. I'm an action-oriented person, so to me, going to blah 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 workshop means nothing, and that I don't mean it with no disrespect, meaning every workshop needs to have an action that follows it.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a wellness workshop, whether it's a yoga workshop. So how are you going to apply that to your life, right? So I came back from a yoga retreat and I'm like, I'm creating a yoga retreat. That was my action because it was a beautiful experience. And I'm like, I want people in Toronto to experience that. And more so, I wanted to add my expertise, which is the financial piece to it, right? So when we talk about, to your point, when we talk about abundance, that mindset is crucial. We need to have a mindset of abundance, because if we cannot see how we can go from point where we are financially, let's say we're struggling, and we cannot see that we can shift that, we're not even going to be able to talk to me or implement any structures. So the mindset is crucial, but then combining the mindset with something that's tangible for people to wrap their brain around. I find often I talk because money is a natural thing for me. I do this every day, and I can see that I've lost somebody, because to me, if I say, let's put 20% of your income into an RSP and this is how it works, and in 15 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I got it, right? But I look at the person on the other side and they're like, I have no idea what you just said, right? So it's making it accessible to somebody. And then we have individuals who are extremely well educated. And then on the other spectrum, they think they can do it all. But probably one of the biggest downsides of managing your own money is you're going to manage emotionally, and you're not going to manage it logically, strategically, and in order to get to the goals you want to get to. So I deal with both sides. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, the way I stress it to all my presenters at the retreat is like, let's really have everybody walk away with an action plan from each one of the workshops. So if you're doing a yoga practice and you truly got grounded that breathing helps you calm, how can you apply that into your everyday? Right? Because, right, if you're going to walk away with my workshop, which is like, okay, what are the 3 things you're going to go implement, and who are you going to engage with? So I actually give worksheets away with an action plan, because to me, it's like, let's take the ideology, and that's where things start shifting, is when you have action. Nothing happens with just conversation. We need to have action and consistency. And then it's never overnight either. I think, John, you and I talked about this overnight thing as well, right? To me, there is no such thing as overnight. There's just like, okay, let's create a structure and let's kind of grow with it over time.
I find you really ground information, that you're like a translator, right? You translate all this stuff. And to me, sometimes I don't quite understand, but you make it very grounded, and I'm able to understand it. And I think it's fabulous what you're going to do at the retreat, because people who do yoga sometimes, or who are in this field, it's very hard to understand, like to bring them together. And that's exactly what you're going to do. And this is actually the way of the future, right? Where everything is related to how we feel, how aligned we are, what decisions we make, and it's all related. So that's exactly what path you're on. And I think it's the path of the future. So you're ahead of the game. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. You know what? And I think, I think also it comes from a space of understanding that we're not in competition with each other. I love the word collaboration, right? So if we can put away our egos and say, okay, if we come together and we collaborate and we have different strengths, don't ask me about blood work. Like, no, I'm not interested. That's not me, right? Don't ask me about technology. We had that discussion. Definitely not me, right? My hair, definitely not, right? So we all have different strengths. So how can we collaborate so we can move somebody from whatever they're struggling with towards a kind of a well-being? And it's usually a well-being that's kind of holistic, right? We're looking at their health, we're looking at their nutrition, we're looking at their finances, we're looking at their mindset, and there could be healers and trauma therapists along the way that needs to be engaged with, nutritionists, fitness coaches, relationship coaches. So that's kind of what I'm envisioning as I'm building this, is a business that continues growing in a space of collaboration moving forward. And, being the financial piece is definitely important, but it's not the only piece that we need to look at.
So for people who cannot attend your retreat for whatever reason, they're busy, what tools can you share with them? Just 3 simple tools that they can start implementing in their life, maybe every day or once a week, to help them, become more financially aware, or something that could help them.
Okay, so the first one, and I always start with this, and everybody that knows me, they're going to be like, oh, here she goes again. Have a budget. Like, if you've never run a budget, go through 3 months worth of your expenses and really figure out what your cash flow is in your home, your cash in and cash out. Go through every single line of your Visa and your bank statements. That's my number one. It's like, I always compare it to if you see a nutritionist or a personal trainer, what's the first thing they ask? What are you eating? So if you come to see me, the first thing I need to know is how much you're spending. So for yourself, by yourself, if you've never done the exercise of understanding exactly what happens, estimating doesn't work. We really need to get down to every dollar that comes in, every dollar that comes out. The next question is, can you figure out your run rate? So how much money does it cost for your household to run? And then the second number you want to know, what are your other expenses? So your non-essential expenses. Combine those 2 figures together, compare it to how much you're making if you're on a salary, and you can pretty much figure out if there's a problem or not. If you're on the other side being self-employed, let's say my run rate is $6,000. One way to do very grounded business planning is, what do I need to do to generate $6,000 a month? Break it down per day, break it down per week. And that is your business plan. We don't need a 20-page, something super simple. So either business owners or salaried people, do me a huge favor and run a budget. Number 2, once a year, make sure you have and review your wills and your powers of attorney. I have currently dealing with a couple of clients who unfortunately passed away for different reasons, really young. If you don't have those 2 documents in place, your family well-being is literally in jeopardy. We have this case in courts for over a year. This gentleman, he was in his 30s, entire assets, everything he owned, his businesses, his homes, everything is frozen, caught up in courts. So if you don't have wills and powers of attorney in place, please have that. So run a budget, have a will and power of attorney in place. And third one, figure out what type of insurance you have in place. Do you have life insurance? Do you have critical illness insurance? Do you have disability insurance? And this is how the conversation usually goes. I go, okay, John, do you have insurance? What do you have? I don't know. They signed me something, I signed something, and I have something. This is usually what it goes. So pull out the policies, take a piece of paper, and figure out what type of policy you have. Usually, if you have a family, you need life insurance to support your spouse should something happen to you. Chances are you need some kind of critical illness. Unfortunately, statistics are 60 to say if you're a couple in your 40s, you have 70% chances of one of you having critical illness before the age of 65. So then the question is, how are you going to support your family and pay for the medications if you're actually going to survive your critical illness? I was just chatting with a client of mine. His wife unfortunately passed away, but during the time she was battling cancer, he couldn't work because he had to take care of her. She obviously couldn't work. She was a pharmacist. She had to go through treatments. So for about 3 years, neither one of them could work. They had massive amount of alternative because they were trying to figure out alternative ways. So do you have anything in place to protect your family from that? Okay. I know it's stuff we don't like talking about, but it's very, very important. So those 3 things: budget, wills, powers of attorney, and life insurance. That's it. If you have these 3 in place, I can go sleep at night. I'm good.
A lot of people don't think about that, you know?
No.
Budget. I got to get the budget figured out still, but I'm getting there.
If you want to as well, to answer your question, Catherine, on our website, so my company's name is Simplicity Financial. That's my financial education company and financial planning company. If you go on our website, there is a worksheet you can download, which will guide you through, how to run a budget. There is a sample budget. There is also a whole suite of courses. So there is a 10-point financial health check course you can take. So you'll hear me talk for 45 minutes. And I'm sorry if you don't like my voice, and life insurance, wills, taxes, investing, all of that is covered in that. So I have different types of courses if you want to know about specifically how to keep more of what you earned. So from a tax perspective, there's a course on that. If you want to know everything to do with investing from A to Z, you can take a course. You can also buy my book. It is in my book. There's a specific chapter. I was just chatting with clients and I'm like, I just realized, because I haven't reviewed this in a little bit, there is specifically a chapter in my $1 Million Difference book that talks about types of investing out there. This is, yeah, see, this is what happens when I get my hair done. They look, my hair looks like this. This is a team of people over here. But there's a whole chapter on, you know, what are the investments, all investments out there? How do I categorize them? And how do I make them make sense for me in terms of my goals? So there is a lot of information that is available directly on our website. If you just want the financial education piece, you can always contact myself as well. But absolutely, those three things. So budget, powers of attorney and wills, and life insurance, well, insurance in general.
And what is your website once again? Just
simplicityfinancial.ca.
.ca. And is that where people can get information on the retreat coming up
Absolutely, as well? Yeah, so the retreat is listed as well there. Yeah, I think that's the simplest thing to do. If you go to simplicityfinancial.ca, you'll see the information on our courses, book, and the prosperity retreats. So you'll see the information around that too. The retreat is Sunday, and we do have literally a handful of tickets. Yes, we only have a handful of tickets. I think we're at 95 or 96% sold out. So if you want to come, grab your ticket like tonight. Yeah, we are, what day are we on? Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Grab your tickets sooner than later. We literally have just a handful of tickets left to the retreat.
On the website?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
awesome. I'll look that up.
Simplicityfinancial.ca. You'll see the information on the prosperity retreats. Take you, there's a link. You can go to the prosperity website and then purchase your ticket right there.
So John, do you have any last questions that you want to?
I've got a couple of questions. Like right now, I mean, it's a great topic because, you know, spiritually and prosperity, and you have to be practical nowadays. That's why I think it's both, you know, it's a good balance. What is your biggest concern right now? Because for me, my biggest concern, it's not just about, you know, retirement. It's, you know, preparing for retirement, but it's a lot of these young people, especially millennials. I mean, everything's so expensive nowadays. Food is expensive. Gas is expensive. The homes are just out of control. They're over $1 million, right? And some of them, they don't know how to manage their money. And they're just living for today, nothing for tomorrow. And that's one of my biggest concerns. Like, what's your concern right now with what you're seeing out there?
Well, like what I'm seeing, to be honest with you, is I see like as a society, we have to reevaluate what's important to us because this is our new norm, meaning the costs of living are higher. North America is probably one of the few countries where we think we're entitled to having a home to ourselves with our own family, and we don't do multi-generational living. And we, you know, so I think during the baby boomer time where things were affordable and the economies were booming and things were relatively inexpensive comparison to income, we got accustomed to these certain things that now we view as we're entitled to these things. And I think what we need to really do as a society is find ways to either, one, you have to find either ways to make more money. So whether it's going to be creating wealth, multiple different ways, having multiple sources of income, not just a job, or being self-employed. I think those are the only two ways you're going to have some control over your income. Alternatively, finding ways to minimize your expenses, being very creative. And I think the creativity aspect needs to be taught better. So instead of, you know, living on your own, even for seniors, to be honest with you, this notion of seniors sharing an apartment or sharing a home together versus, you know, one person living in a 3,000 square foot home. So I think our expectations and our way of looking at life needs to shift, because if we continue on this path, we're going to see more anxiety and stress related to our financial well-being, because a dollar doesn't stretch as much as it did even a year ago, right? So we need to, there is really two parameters. We either need to make more money, or we have to adjust our expectations of what we, what we deem to be something we value, right? Everybody's got different expectations, but it's really those two pieces have to adjust. And I think it's going to take some time. I think and in the interim, what I'm concerned with is mental health is going to be what gets affected. Our spiritual health gets affected. Our children get affected. Our relationships get affected, because we are under a lot of pressure and under a lot of stress due to these financial pressures.
My last question for you is, what about those people that you've met? Like, I've met a lot of people all the time that are spiritual in their own ways, but they've got this idea about money that it's the root of all evil. It's not for them, and they'd rather kind of like suffer sometimes, or live paycheck to paycheck, or get a handout. How would you approach them? Like,
I think it goes, I think it goes to Catherine's point. I think there's some trauma there, first of all, right? There's some trauma there. It's being like, it's probably to some degree how I was raised as well. And somewhere along the way, I kind of figured out a way to shift my mindset. To me, if money is created from value provided, then how can that be income that has been created from evil? If we're creating value with love, gratitude, respect, and we're able to get wealthy from that, I see no issues with that. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of examples in every industry of people getting, wealthy and not doing it from that space. And to that, I'm like, karma is karma, energy, spirituality, whatever we want to call it. I feel like, that cannot sustain itself. So I think slowly, it's just trying to understand. I'm very careful that I don't get necessarily into those conversations in my office, because then I then take off my financial planning hat and put on a therapist hat. So I oftentimes I'll be like, okay, this is not a conversation to have with me. We can have a general conversation, but there's probably some additional work that needs to be done, because it is, I hear you. A lot of, I would say a good percentage of our population, that is the mindset, right? And it's that mindset, it's what has them in that cycle of, I make X, I spent everything, I'm back to square one. Oh, it must be negative, right? And it's that cycle. So the only way to break that cycle is understanding that psychology behind. And if it is, money is the root of all evil, who said that? Where does it come from? Going down to, when is the last time you remembered it? How was it received by you? And is there an opportunity for a paradigm shift? Right? A shift in thinking. Maybe let's look at some examples of some people who are wealthy, but they're also delivering value in creating beautiful companies and jobs and opportunities, versus the people that are taking away from the society by getting wealthy.
You said it so well, and I agree with you 100%. I think whatever outside, money, cars, whatever it is basically a reflection of how you are and the vibrations and frequencies within you. So if you're seeing that as bad, then it's all about bringing it back to yourself, doing some soul searching, seeing what the root of the issue is, and then clearing that in order for you to not have that attachment to the thing, right? And see it just as a thing, as a neutral thing, not good or bad, just an energy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But that's a lot of work. And I would say a lot of people are not even aware that that's the attachment they have. They're not even conscious. Perhaps it's the realm that you guys work in, John. At least you have maybe individuals who are already conscious that they have that bias. But I come across most people who, they don't even understand why they do the same thing all the time. They're not aware of the fact that they have this bias. So it's sometimes even going through the process of discovering that is like, oh my God, I had no idea, right? And then finding a way to kind of move past it. And some people can't. Like sometimes it's very difficult for people to move past that, right? I'm sure you guys have seen that.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I wish you good luck in your retreat, and we would love to have you in the next couple of months and let me know the outcome. And such a, we can go on forever about prosperity and spirituality.
Yeah.
I personally love money, so I'm.
That's why I said we just need to open some wine and we can keep going.
Well, next time, we'll let me know how the retreat and the next one, and we can really promote it.
Awesome.
It was such a pleasure speaking to you about your retreat and a little bit about your background and how you came to create it. And I really wish you all the best and can't wait to hear about your next one. We'll have to interview you on your next one, and look forward to it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the interview. It was an amazing, very neat experience to have this interaction as well. It's a topic that's so dear to my heart. So anytime, happy to come back. Off script, we can just talk. It's all good.
We'll meet up for sure. And
thank you for inviting me out, John. This has been interesting. It's nice to meet you lovely ladies too. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
And sure. I'll drop by on a Sunday and
perfect.
See you talk. Well, thanks everybody, Catherine, Melissa,
thank you,
especially you, Anna, and God bless.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful evening.
You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye.